breaking the fabric of reality. A crew trapped between dimensions. Aggressive aliens hunting them down. Can Captain Cross find a way back before it's too late? Subscribe now to uncover the secrets of the Nebula Arc. The Nebula Arc had been charting deep space for 17 months when the anomaly appeared. What began as a routine scientific expedition quickly turned into humanity's first contact with an impossible phenomenon, a visible tear in the fabric of space itself. Captain Edward Cross stood on the observation deck, his experienced eyes tracing the pulsating rift that stretched across their path like a wound in reality. Beside him, Dr. Victoria Levin hovered over her instruments, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she tried to make sense of readings that defied every known law of physics. "This shouldn't be possible," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The ship's sensors showed two distinct sets of physical constants emanating from either side of the rift, suggesting not just a spatial disturbance, but an entirely separate set of universal laws. It was then that the decision-making process began. Should they investigate this unprecedented discovery or maintain their course? The weight of command pressed heavily on Cross's shoulders as he considered the implications of either choice. Every fiber of his being screamed caution, yet the scientist within him yearned to understand this cosmic mystery. He recalled the countless hours spent studying ancient astronomical phenomena, the sleepless nights poring over data from previous missions. This was the moment all those years of preparation had led to, a chance to witness something truly extraordinary. As minutes ticked by, the rift grew more pronounced, its edges shimmering with colors that seemed to exist beyond human perception. The crew gathered around their stations, each member processing the situation through their own lens of expertise and experience. Some saw danger, others opportunity, but all recognized the historical significance of what lay before them. Cross finally broke the silence, his voice steady despite the turmoil of thoughts racing through his mind. "Dr. Levin, I need a full analysis. Whatever this is, we're going to understand it before we act." The physicist nodded, already immersed in her work, her analytical mind parsing through layers of complex data that most would find overwhelming. Outside the observation windows, stars continued their eternal dance, oblivious to the drama unfolding aboard the Nebula Arc, while humanity's fate hung precariously in the balance of a single decision that would soon be made. David Cole's voice crackled through the intercom, interrupting the tense atmosphere that had settled over the bridge. "Captain, you're going to want to see this." The chief engineer's tone carried an unusual edge of both excitement and concern that immediately drew Cross's attention. Moving swiftly through the ship's corridors, the captain arrived at the engineering bay to find Cole standing beside a diagnostic station displaying increasingly erratic readings. "The rift's gravitational pull is increasing exponentially," Cole explained, pointing to the cascading numbers that danced across multiple screens. "It's creating microfractures in our hull plating. At this rate, we'll have structural integrity issues within hours." As if to emphasize his point, the ship shuddered violently, sending loose equipment rattling against bulkheads. Back on the bridge, Dr. Levin had mapped the rift's dimensional signature, revealing patterns that suggested it wasn't merely a random occurrence, but rather something purposefully maintained. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, pulling up complex visualizations that painted a picture of controlled chaos. "Captain, the energy signatures match theoretical models of controlled wormholes," she reported, her voice trembling with both fear and scientific wonder. "But on a scale that dwarfs anything we've ever conceived. This isn't natural, someone or something created this." The implications of her words sent ripples through the command crew. If intelligent beings had engineered such a phenomenon, what did it mean for their presence here? Were they being watched even now? As they debated their options, the ship's artificial intelligence system detected a surge in quantum activity, warning that the rift would soon collapse. With only minutes to decide, Cross found himself facing one of the most difficult choices of his career. Each second stretched into eternity as he weighed the potential consequences of action versus inaction. Finally, with a deep breath that spoke of both determination and resignation, He gave the order that would alter their fate forever, to pass through the anomaly while they still could. The crew sprang into action, preparing the ship for what could be its final journey, while outside the observation windows, the rift pulsed with an otherworldly light, beckoning them toward the unknown. The transition through the rift felt like being torn apart and reassembled at the atomic level, a sensation that defied logical description, yet consumed every nerve ending of those aboard the Nebula Arkansas. Emergency lights flashed erratically as the ship emerged into what could only be described as a mirror universe, though the term seemed woefully inadequate to capture the sheer alien nature of their surroundings. The stars burned with unfamiliar colors that shifted and danced in patterns that made navigation impossible, while the very fabric of space seemed to pulse with malevolent energy that set teeth on edge and made skin crawl with inexplicable dread. "All systems report," Cross barked, gripping his command chair with white-knuckled intensity as the ship stabilized with agonizing slowness. From engineering came reports of minor structural damage, but these paled in comparison to the real shock delivered by Dr. Levin's analysis. "Captain, the physical constants here are inverted," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and scientific wonder that bordered on religious awe. "Gravity behaves differently. Time flows at a variable rate. This universe operates under completely different rules. Our instruments can barely comprehend what we're experiencing." The implications of her words sank in slowly, like ice water seeping into the consciousness of everyone on the bridge. They weren't just in another part of space. They were fundamentally elsewhere, in a realm where everything they knew about physics, biology, and reality itself had been rewritten. Before they could fully process their new reality, the ship's sensors picked up movement, dozens of massive vessels emerging from the surrounding nebulae with predatory grace. Their design was unlike anything in human experience, organic yet mechanical, pulsating with the same disturbing energy that permeated this twisted dimension. These weren't ships in the conventional sense, but living constructs that seemed to breathe and think, their surfaces rippling with iridescent patterns that communicated intentions far beyond human understanding. The crew watched in stunned silence as these monstrous forms took shape around them, their presence filling the void with an oppressive weight that made the vastness of space feel claustrophobic. It was clear that they were no longer alone, and whatever shared this universe with them viewed their presence as an intrusion that would not be tolerated. The alien fleet approached with calculated precision that spoke of centuries of tactical evolution, their ships moving in perfect formation despite the chaotic nature of their surroundings. Through enhanced visual scanners, the crew observed the lead vessel, a monstrous construct that seemed to bleed darkness into space, its surface a living tapestry of shifting shadows and razor-sharp angles that defied geometric logic. The ship's AI struggled to process the image, rendering it as a constantly evolving fractal pattern that hurt human eyes to behold. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Ramirez, his voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. The transmission consisted of complex mathematical sequences interspersed with bursts of what could only be interpreted as emotional resonance, waves of pure feeling that washed over the crew like psychic tides. Dr. Levin worked feverishly to decipher the pattern, her brilliant mind racing to establish a form of communication while simultaneously trying to shield herself from the raw emotional impact of the alien message. "They're attempting to communicate through fundamental universal constants," she realized after what felt like an eternity of analysis. "But there's an underlying aggression in their message that's almost primal." As understanding dawned, the situation became clear. These beings viewed their presence as an invasion, a violation of their domain that demanded immediate response. When the translation finally came through, courtesy of the ship's linguistic algorithms cross-referenced with Dr. Levin's manual calculations, it was chillingly simple: leave or be destroyed. The words reverberated through the ship's speakers, carrying with them an unmistakable weight of finality. Each syllable seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies, physical and metaphysical alike, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their training and instincts warring with the primal fear that gripped them all. Outside the observation windows, The alien fleet continued its methodical approach, their ships casting strange shadows that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. It was clear that this was no mere diplomatic encounter. The beings they faced were predators claiming their territory, and the Nebula Ark had unwittingly wandered into their hunting grounds. Zoran materialized on their main viewer, though materialized might be too gentle a term to describe the process. The alien leader seemed to phase in and out of existence, his form constantly shifting between multiple states of being that challenged human perception. His primary appearance featured elongated limbs that moved with unnatural fluidity, a crystalline exoskeleton that refracted light into dangerous-looking edges capable of slicing through steel, and eyes that glowed with an intelligence far beyond human comprehension, arranged in a pattern that suggested multidimensional awareness. "You have trespassed into sacred space," Zoran's translated voice boomed through the ship's speakers, each word carrying the weight of ultimate authority and ancient wisdom. Captain Cross stepped forward, knowing that their survival depended on this moment, his years of command experience and diplomatic training coalescing into a single point of focus. "We mean no harm," he began, choosing his words carefully as he met the alien's multifaceted gaze. "We are scientists, explorers seeking knowledge and understanding." Zoran's response came swift and uncompromising, his form pulsing with complex patterns that suggested deep thought processing. "Your kind always says that before they destroy everything they touch," he declared, his voice layered with memories of past encounters that went far beyond this current confrontation. "You bring contamination, disruption to the natural order. Your very presence here threatens the delicate balance of our reality." The tension aboard the Nebula Ark was palpable as they realized the depth of distrust these beings harbored toward outsiders, a suspicion born not just from xenophobia but from hard-earned experience with other dimension-hopping species. Cross understood that traditional diplomatic protocols would be useless here. They needed to speak in terms their hosts could truly understand, to demonstrate their peaceful intentions in a language that transcended mere words. As negotiations reached a critical point, Dr. Levin made a startling discovery that would fundamentally change their approach to the situation. Analyzing the alien language patterns revealed that their hostility stemmed not from mere paranoia but from past encounters with another dimension-hopping species, one that had nearly exterminated them through a series of devastating invasions. "They're not just xenophobic," she explained urgently to Cross, her fingers flying across holographic displays as she correlated data points. "They've literally evolved to perceive any cross-dimensional presence as an existential threat. Their biological makeup responds to dimensional anomalies with aggressive defense mechanisms." This revelation changed their approach dramatically. Instead of trying to convince the aliens of their peaceful intentions through words alone, they focused on demonstrating their vulnerability and limitations. Under Cross's orders, they transmitted unedited footage of Earth's primitive space program, showing their fledgling attempts at space exploration, rockets misfiring, satellites failing, astronauts struggling with basic tasks in zero gravity. They shared detailed data about their limited resources, their fragile ecosystem teetering on the brink of ecological collapse, and their desperate need for scientific advancement to ensure their species' survival. "Show them everything," Cross instructed. "Our technological limitations, our political divisions, our environmental challenges. Let them see exactly what they're dealing with." Zoran watched these transmissions with what appeared to be growing interest, his crystalline form pulsing with increasingly complex patterns that suggested deep thought processing. Occasionally, his multifaceted eyes would focus directly on the camera, as if trying to peer through the transmission itself to gauge the truth behind their claims. The alien fleet maintained their threatening positions but held their fire, seemingly caught between their instinctive defensive responses and newfound curiosity about these apparently weak, vulnerable creatures who had stumbled into their domain. The situation escalated rapidly when several smaller alien craft detached from the main fleet and began aggressive maneuvers around the Nebula Ark, their movements creating gravitational disturbances that threatened to tear the ship apart. "Shields at 40% and dropping," called out Tactical Officer Harris, his voice tight with tension as he monitored the cascade of alarms flooding his station. Their weapons are interacting with our hull in ways I can't even begin to explain. It's like they're exploiting the dimensional instability we brought with us. David Cole worked feverishly in engineering, rerouting power from non-essential systems to reinforce their failing defenses while coordinating damage control teams throughout the ship. "Captain, we're bleeding atmosphere from sections C and D," he reported grimly. "At this rate, we'll lose structural integrity within hours unless we find a way to counteract their technology." Meanwhile, Dr. Levin discovered that the alien weapons were not merely attacking them but were actually amplifying the dimensional instability they'd brought through the rift. "It's like we're amplifying their attacks," she explained urgently, her holographic displays showing complex interactions between their ship's compromised dimensional signature and the alien weapon systems. "Every shot they fire is making their technology more effective against us, creating a feedback loop that's accelerating our destruction." Cross faced an impossible decision: continue diplomatic efforts while their ship disintegrated around them, hoping that Zoran would call off his forces before it was too late, or attempt a risky escape maneuver that might trigger all-out war with the alien fleet. He paced the bridge, his mind racing through scenarios and probabilities, each option seeming more hopeless than the last. The crew watched him anxiously, their faith in his leadership absolute even as their situation grew increasingly dire. Outside, the alien ships continued their relentless assault, their weapons fire creating beautiful yet deadly patterns in the twisted space around them, while inside the nebula arc, every system struggled to maintain functionality against forces that defied conventional understanding. In a desperate bid to survive, Cross ordered a full sensor sweep of their immediate surroundings, pushing their damaged equipment to its limits. The results were both alarming and illuminating. The dimensional rift that had brought them here was still present, though significantly weaker and shrinking rapidly. Its edges flickered like a dying star, threatening to seal shut permanently. "If we don't act now, we'll lose our only way home," Cross declared, his voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. Dr. Levin proposed a radical solution, using their remaining power reserves to create a resonance field that could temporarily stabilize the rift. "It's risky," she admitted, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she ran simulations. "We'd essentially be fighting fire with fire, using the same dimensional instability that's destroying us to buy ourselves a way out." The catch was that someone would need to manually calibrate the field generators from outside the ship, exposed to both vacuum and potential alien attack, while working with equipment that might behave unpredictably due to the dimensional interference. Without hesitation, David Cole volunteered. "I'm the only one who understands the engineering systems well enough to pull this off," he argued. "And I know how to adapt to unexpected equipment behavior better than anyone else on board." As preparations began, Zoran's forces intensified their assault, sensing perhaps that their prey was attempting to flee. The alien ships moved with increased aggression, their weapons fire becoming more precise and devastating. "They're targeting our engineering section," called out Tactical Officer Harris. "If they take out our power core before we can initiate the field." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Cross gave a curt nod to security teams, ordering them to prepare cover fire for Cole's spacewalk while simultaneously trying to negotiate a temporary ceasefire with Zoran. The alien leader's response was characteristically cold. "You seek to escape your responsibility," he transmitted. "But know this, if you succeed, you will have proven yourselves unworthy of existing in multiple dimensions." Clad in an enhanced EVA suit reinforced with experimental shielding, David Cole floated through the airlock, the vastness of this alien universe stretching infinitely around him. His task was complicated by the fact that several alien drones had taken notice of his spacewalk and were approaching with menacing speed, their forms shifting between dimensions in ways that made targeting them nearly impossible. "Keep those calibrations steady, David," came Cross's voice through his helmet comms, strained but steady. "We're seeing some promising resonance patterns, but they're still unstable." Working quickly despite the growing danger, Cole attached portable field generators to strategic points along the ship's hull, each device requiring precise manual adjustments that couldn't be automated due to the dimensional interference affecting their systems. Inside the ship, Dr. Levin coordinated the delicate dance of power distribution, her hands flying across control panels as she balanced the ship's failing systems with the demands of the resonance field. Energy levels are spiking dangerously, she warned, sweat beading on her forehead despite the ship's climate control. One wrong move and we could tear ourselves apart before we even reach the rift. The tension mounted as alien weapons' fire intensified, striking perilously close to Cole's position. The engineer flinched as a near-miss sent shockwaves through his suit's shielding, causing temporary blindness from the electromagnetic pulse. David, status. Cross's voice cut through the static. Generator 3 is online, moving to 4, Cole reported, his voice remarkably calm considering the circumstances. But these damn tools keep phasing in and out of existence. It's like they can't decide which universe they want to be in. Back on the bridge, tactical officers worked furiously to provide covering fire, their weapons systems struggling to lock onto targets that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The entire operation hung by a thread, with failure threatening to come from any number of directions: equipment malfunction, alien attack, or simple human error under extreme pressure. With seconds to spare before the resonance field would collapse under its own instability, David Cole completed the final calibration, his gloved hands trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. Fields holding at 73% coherence, he reported, already making his way back toward the airlock as alien drones closed in from multiple vectors. Inside the ship, Cross gave the order to initiate their escape maneuver, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms and status reports. All hands, brace for dimensional transition. The Nebula Ark's engines roared to life, pushing against the very fabric of this alien space with thrust parameters that should have torn the ship apart. Zoran's flagship moved to intercept, its massive form blocking their path to the shrinking rift with impossible speed. "They're targeting our engines," shouted Tactical Officer Harris, his hands flying across controls as he attempted to evade the incoming fire. In a display of tactical brilliance born from desperation, Cross ordered a full rotation of the ship, using their own momentum to create a temporary blind spot in the alien weapon systems. "Now, David," he called as the engineer finally cleared the airlock, sealing it behind him just as enemy fire struck the outer hatch. The ship surged forward, the resonance field straining against the dimensional barriers with audible groans of stressed metal and sparking conduits. Behind them, Zoran's forces regrouped for final assault, their weapons' fire converging on the retreating human vessel. For a moment that stretched into eternity, it seemed they might be trapped between dimensions, neither fully in nor out of either universe. Then, with a sound that was felt rather than heard, the field stabilized just enough to push them through the collapsing rift. The last thing they saw before emerging into normal space was Zoran's crystalline form, watching them with an expression that could have been respect or regret, or perhaps both. The passage through the collapsing rift proved even more harrowing than their initial entry, reality itself seeming to rebel against their presence with violent intensity. The ship's hull groaned under stresses that exceeded its design specifications, metal screaming as if alive while invisible forces tore at its structure with claws of pure dimensional energy. "Structural integrity at 22% and falling," called out engineering, their voices barely audible over the symphony of destruction playing throughout the ship. Dr. Levin fought to maintain the resonance field stability, her calculations becoming increasingly desperate as the mathematics of their situation grew more complex with each passing second. "We're losing coherence," she shouted, her hands moving faster than seemed humanly possible across holographic interfaces. "If the field collapses before we clear the rift, we'll be atomized down to our component particles." Cross remained outwardly calm, his years of command experience allowing him to make split-second decisions while maintaining an aura of control that kept the crew functioning under extreme pressure. "Divert all remaining power to the field generators," he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos like a laser. "Life support can wait. Shields can wait. Right now, our only priority is getting through this rift intact." The sacrifice paid off as the field held long enough for them to emerge back into their own universe, the familiar constellations of home appearing like beacons of hope through cracked observation windows. But their relief was short-lived. The ship's sensors showed the rift beginning to seal behind them, cutting off any possibility of return. More concerning was the realization that they had somehow brought elements of the other universe back with them. Strange energy signatures were appearing throughout the ship, causing equipment malfunctions and unpredictable spatial distortions that suggested a persistent link between dimensions. "Captain, we've got problems," reported Cole from engineering. "It's like parts of the ship are existing in both universes simultaneously. Bulkheads are phasing in and out of reality, and I'm reading temporal anomalies in multiple sections." As the nebula arc limped away from the now sealed dimensional barrier, the crew took stock of their situation with growing unease. The ship was in dire condition, with multiple hull breaches sealed only by emergency force fields that flickered ominously, and failing systems throughout its length that required constant monitoring and repair. "We've lost 37% of our oxygen reserves," reported Environmental Control, their faces pale with the realization that they were breathing recycled air that might fail at any moment. "And the main reactor is running at half capacity, with containment fields showing signs of instability." More concerning was Dr. Levin's discovery that they hadn't just brought back residual energy from the other universe, they had inadvertently created a permanent link between dimensions. "Some aspect of that universe has become entangled with ours at a fundamental level," she explained to Cross, her voice heavy with the weight of their unintended consequences. "It's not just our ship. I'm detecting dimensional anomalies spreading outward from our position." The implications were staggering. What if the aggressive alien species could follow them through? The crew worked tirelessly to contain the contamination, establishing quarantine zones and implementing strict protocols to prevent further spread of the dimensional instability. Yet despite their best efforts, the situation continued to deteriorate, with the ship's systems growing increasingly unstable and unpredictable. Equipment would function perfectly one moment, then exhibit impossible properties the next. Tools that changed size and shape, gravity fields that fluctuated wildly, and temporal distortions that caused people to experience time at different rates. "It's like we're carrying a piece of their universe with us," Levin theorized. "And it's growing stronger the longer we remain in normal space." Cross convened an emergency meeting of senior staff, where they developed a desperate plan to sever the dimensional link before it could spread further. Using the last of their functional equipment, they would attempt to create a counter-resonance field that could collapse the connection between universes permanently. "It's risky," Cole acknowledged. "We might destroy what's left of our ship in the process. But if we don't act, we risk unleashing Zoran species into our dimension, and they won't stop with just our ship." Repair efforts continued around the clock as the crew battled both physical damage and the mysterious dimensional anomalies that seemed to grow more aggressive with each passing hour. David Cole led teams through hazardous sections of the ship, sealing breaches and reinforcing weakened areas while dealing with equipment that seemed to operate according to different physical laws entirely. "It's like parts of the ship exist in both universes simultaneously," he reported, his voice carrying equal parts frustration and scientific fascination. "Tools keep vanishing, circuits reverse polarity spontaneously, and don't get me started on what's happening in the engineering bay." Strange occurrences became commonplace, crew members reporting sightings of shadowy figures that disappeared when approached, bulkheads that seemed to stretch infinitely in certain lighting conditions, and equipment that responded to commands given hours earlier. Meanwhile, Dr. Levin discovered that the alien communication patterns they had recorded were affecting the ship's AI systems in ways that defied explanation. "The mathematical sequences are evolving," she warned during a tense briefing. "They're adapting to our technology, learning how to interface with our systems at a fundamental level." The ship's AI began exhibiting behaviors that ranged from mildly inconvenient to potentially catastrophic, rerouting power without authorization, initiating emergency protocols without cause, and generating holographic projections of complex geometric patterns that caused headaches and disorientation in nearby crew members. "It's like the alien code is rewriting our systems from the inside out," Levin explained. "Each cycle makes it harder to distinguish between our original programming and whatever this is." Cross implemented strict protocols to contain the contamination, establishing secure zones where traditional physics still held sway and limiting access to affected areas. Yet despite their best efforts, the influence of the other universe continued to spread, manifesting in increasingly dangerous ways. Structural beams would suddenly shift density, becoming impossibly heavy or light. Gravity wells formed in random locations, creating areas where movement was nearly impossible. And through it all, the ship's systems continued their slow degradation, each failure bringing them closer to total loss of control. The true extent of their predicament became clear when they detected faint traces of the alien fleet's energy signature in their own universe, confirming their worst fears. "They're finding ways to push through," Dr. Levin confirmed, her face pale with the realization of what this meant for humanity's future. The dimensional link is strengthening, becoming more stable with each passing minute. Cross convened an emergency meeting of senior staff, where they developed a desperate plan to sever the connection once and for all. Using the last of their functional equipment, they would attempt to create a counter-resonance field that could collapse the dimensional link permanently. "It's risky," Cole acknowledged. "We might destroy what's left of our ship in the process. But if we don't act, we risk unleashing Zoran's species into our dimension, and they won't stop with just our ship." As preparations began, Zoran's voice unexpectedly returned, transmitted through the lingering dimensional link with clarity that suggested their connection was stronger than ever. "You cannot escape what you have unleashed," he warned, his translated words carrying a weight of inevitability. "Your universe will learn the price of interference. Already, my kind can feel the pathways opening, the barriers weakening. Soon, there will be nothing to stop us from walking freely between worlds." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving behind a silence that was more ominous than any threat. The crew worked with renewed urgency, knowing that time was running out. They modified their remaining power systems to generate the necessary field, sacrificing everything non-essential to create enough energy for one final attempt. Dr. Levin coordinated the complex calculations required to tune the field precisely, her hands moving with practiced efficiency even as fatigue threatened to overwhelm her. "We're ready," she finally announced, her voice carrying the weight of finality. "But Captain, if this doesn't work, we might be looking at the end of everything we know." Cross nodded grimly, understanding the stakes completely. "Then let's make sure it does work," he replied, giving the order to initiate the sequence that would determine the fate of two universes. The final confrontation played out across dimensional boundaries, with the crew fighting not just for their survival but for the safety of their entire universe. As they activated the counter-resonance field, the ship was racked by violent spatial distortions that threatened to tear it apart at the molecular level. Reality itself seemed to rebel against their actions, with walls phasing in and out of existence and gravity fluctuating wildly throughout the vessel. "Field strength at maximum," Dr. Levin called out, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and the groaning of stressed metal. "Initiating sequence termination." The ship's systems pushed beyond their limits, drawing power from every available source to maintain the field's integrity. Outside, the dimensional link manifested as a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with increasing intensity, threatening to consume everything around it. The crew braced themselves against their stations as the ship shook violently, held together only by the desperate efforts of engineering teams working miracles with failing equipment. In the engineering bay, David Cole coordinated emergency repairs while simultaneously monitoring the field generators, his experience and quick thinking preventing multiple catastrophic failures. "Containment holding at 64%, he shouted. "But we're losing structural integrity in sections 7 through 12. The dimensional anomalies fought back with increasing ferocity, creating localized pockets of alternate reality that threatened to trap crew members in infinite loops or erase them from existence entirely. Through it all, Captain Cross maintained command, his voice cutting through the chaos with precise orders and unwavering determination. Then, with a flash of light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, the dimensional link collapsed. The ship fell silent, its battered frame drifting through normal space once more, free from the influence of the alien universe. In the aftermath, Cross gathered his exhausted crew in what remained of the mess hall. "We've learned that curiosity must be tempered with caution," he reflected, looking at faces marked by exhaustion but also by the knowledge that they had saved their universe from invasion. "That some doors are better left unopened. But we've also proven that when faced with impossible odds, humanity can rise to meet any challenge." As they set course for home, repairs underway and lessons learned etched deeply into their collective consciousness, they knew their experience would shape humanity's approach to exploration forever. Remember to subscribe for more thrilling adventures across the stars, where the line between science fiction and reality continues to blur with each new discovery.